Cindy here. Reflecting on our adventurous times, this particular story from Jamaica stands out, not because it's the messiest, but because it holds a different kind of excitement for me and Cal. We've had our fair share of playful chaos in the past, experimenting with all sorts of sensations that drenched us head to toe, but this one involves a different kind of indulgence. It all started about a year and a half into our marriage when we decided to escape to a secluded, adults-only resort. Let's call it Sunfire Cove. The name itself sparks a sense of heat and freedom, a place where inhibitions float away like sea breeze, and bodies are free to express desire without a trace of judgment. At that point, our marriage was still shaded with curiosity. We dabbled in swinging occasionally, seeking new experiences to keep the flame alive. While this story doesn't dive into that part of our lives, that adventurous spirit remained, influencing how we approached every moment together. Sunfire Cove wasn't just any resort. It was a sanctuary positioned right on the edge of the ocean, with palm trees swaying lazily in the Caribbean breeze and crystal-clear waters hinting at endless possibilities. The resort was enchanting in a way that made it easy to lose yourself. No children, no formal dress codes, no time clocks, just an open invitation to be uninhibited in the truest sense. We arrived early in the morning, the air thick with the scent of salt and blooming tropical flowers. The sun was just beginning its climb, casting warm, golden glimmers across the sprawling beach. Cal and I wasted no time shedding layers, and not just clothing, but the weight of daily routines and old worries. I slipped into my tiniest black bikini, a daring choice designed to tease rather than conceal. The top was barely two simple triangles hiding just enough, and the bottoms were so minimal they disappeared when I bent or moved, an intentional hint at freedom and flirtation. Cal, ever the proud partner, chose swim shorts that did little to mask the excitement simmering between his legs. It was impossible not to notice him. Every now and then, he would glance my way with a hunger that made my skin tingle. What made Cal especially happy wasn't just my skimpy swimsuit, but the way I chose to engage with the other guests. Sunfire Cove was filled with people who seemed to reject the idea of clothing almost entirely. Bikinis gave way to bare skin, and inhibitions melted into the sultry heat. I found myself reveling in the mix of sunlight, skin, and the charged atmosphere. I am not one to shy away from attention, and with Cal watching, my daring side blossomed. Instead of coy smiles, I practiced a more seductive art, reclining on loungers by the pool, arching my back just enough to press my chest against the fabric, making my nipples stand out defiantly through the delicate material. The hot sun warmed my skin, beads of sweat forming and catching the light, lending me an almost glassy, irresistible shine. Passing strangers, mostly men, couldn't seem to resist stealing glances, and I didn't hide it. I'd splay my legs ever so slightly, allowing just a hint of what lay beneath to show in the revealing cut of my bikini bottoms. I edged closer to certain men, not because I wanted anything from them, but because I wanted Cal to see and feel every moment. If there was any doubt about how this affected him, his whispered breaths and quickened heartbeats soon erased it. Even his sunglasses, usually a barrier, couldn't conceal the way his eyes darkened at the sight of me teasingly licking my drink straw, the slow, deliberate swiping of lotion across my arms and legs. That day, Cal's jaw clenched with barely contained frustration and anticipation. The way he shifted his weight, brushing invisible fingers across my skin, was a constant reminder of the magnetic pull between us. We were surrounded by freedom and temptation, and yet all our attention was reserved for each other, except when I chose to flirt with the environment around us, making Cal ache with desire simply by existing in that sun-kissed skin. The tension built slowly over hours, the heat of the sun, the electric energy swirling just beneath the surface, creating an invisible web of longing. As the day progressed, that tiny bikini became less about modesty and more a statement of control, mine to tease, his to admire. The combination of laughter, sun, sea, and the casual yet charged interactions around us made for an intoxicating mix. I was acutely aware of every eye on me, every glance that sparked a reaction from Cal, every subtle shift in his demeanor, fueled by the way I moved and responded. Our dance was mutual and unspoken, a blend of exhibition and intimacy that made the entire resort feel like our playground. In those moments, the world dissolved down to just the two of us. The sound of waves, distant music, and occasional murmurs from other guests faded into the background noise of our own shared presence. And beneath that surface, an undercurrent of anticipation pulsed stronger and stronger, the promise of something that wasn't just about the body, but about the connection, the trust, the freedom to be unabashedly ourselves. Sunfire Cove was no longer just a place. It was a backdrop for our story, a sun-drenched chapter etched into the memory of a marriage unfolding in delicious, unrestrained ways. The way I moved, the calculated glances I threw, they weren't just for show, they were a secret language between Cal and me, one only we fully understood. I'd lean in close to men who caught my eye but were off limits, just to stir a reaction. Not because I wanted them, I wanted him to see, to feel the tight coil of desire that wound tighter inside him every time I played this little game. It was all about the teasing, the slow burn of anticipation that made Cal's presence electric, his gaze impossible to ignore. Each time I brushed my lips near a stranger's ear or let my laughter ring a bit louder than necessary, I caught the subtle shift in Cal's stance, the tightening of his jaw, the quickening of his breath. I knew precisely how to push just the right buttons, how to flare my body in ways that, while casual on the surface, spoke volumes beneath. Every lick of the straw, every slow, deliberate swipe of lotion across my skin, every flash of my smile in his direction was a thread weaving us closer together in this tangled web of need. The sun burnt bright on my skin as I glided under its gaze, the heat mixing with the thrill of exhibitionism and intimacy. I wasn't just playing for others' attention. I was playing for Cal's pleasure, orchestrating a private show that only he truly appreciated. The sunglasses he wore were no barrier. I could see the fire sparkling through the tinted lenses, the way his eyes darkened whenever I tilted my head to catch the sun just right, or stretched with a languid elegance that held promise and seduction. The tension was palpable. His hands twitched, fingers twitching impatiently at his sides as if aching to reach me, touch me, pull me closer. The way he bit his lip in moments I caught his eye told me everything I had him utterly captivated. It was a delicious kind of torture for both of us, this slow building of hunger over nothing but looks and gestures. The poolside became our stage, my body the centerpiece, and Cal the captivated audience. The heat between us outmatched the blazing sun, radiating in unspoken words and silent confessions of desire. I could feel his gaze tracing every subtle movement, every curve, every flex of muscle beneath my sun-warmed skin. My fingers would trail lightly over my legs, then upwards, pausing, as if hesitant only, to press firm and slow, needing to make sure he noticed. And he did, watching with intent and growing hunger swirling behind his lashes. Around us, other couples existed, but seemed secondary to the small bubble Cal and I created around ourselves. That magnetic pull between us grew stronger by the moment, making it harder to focus on anything else. I moved just enough, flirted just enough to set him on edge, living for the broken breaths and soft groans that escaped when he thought no one was looking. Even the smallest touch, the gentlest brush of my skin, sent electric shock waves between us. Lotion became more than just skincare. It was a tool of seduction. I would squeeze drops into my palms and run them slowly up my arms or across my chest, drawing out the smooth silkiness for his eyes to drink in. The glisten under the sun was apparent, every movement enhancing the allure, making Cal visibly ache, trying to contain the rising tide of desire that had been simmering since we arrived. Every time I licked the straw of my cocktail, I did it with a slow, knowing intention, letting my tongue linger just enough to catch attention. Cal's reaction was immediate, his jaw clenched, his breath hitched, and his eyes darkened, not with jealousy, but with an unbearable craving. Watching me from behind his mirrored shades was pure hunger incarnate. It was as if he wanted to crawl over, touch me right there, right now, but the constraints of the resort, of other people, kept him tethered. And so the teasing continued, a delicious game of push and pull played out under the Caribbean sun. The playful glances and stolen moments weren't just innocent fun, they were the build-up to something deeper, a crescendo of craving that we both knew, would reach a peak soon. The entire day felt suspended in a charged stillness, the kind that comes just before an electrical storm. There was no need for words. The way our bodies responded, the secret smiles exchanged across space, the way Cal's hands twitched and flexed at his side said everything. I liked this game, the tension, the slow burn, the shared secret that was entirely ours. The way my skin tightened with anticipation, and the subtle wetness that grew beneath my bikini bottom was all for Cal, for the promise of what was to come. In those moments, nothing else mattered. I was the show, he was the hungry spectator, and the world outside that small circle of heat, sweat, and unspoken desire ceased to exist. It was intoxicating to wield that power, to be the cause of his twitching fingers and quickened heartbeats without even touching him. My every move was calibrated to send shivers down his spine, to make the quiet grow louder between us, and to prepare us for the release we both craved. Watching him suffer deliciously as I played with invisible strings was almost as pleasurable as what was to come once the boundaries dissolved. The slow realization that no one else mattered in that moment was deeply empowering. The other guests were background noise, my body was willing fire, and Cal was the hungry flame eager to ignite it completely. As the sun dipped lower in the sky and shadows grew longer, the silent dialogue between us thickened. His gaze never wavered, and my teasing grew bolder. I wanted him to understand without words how deeply I desired him, how every glance, every lick of my lips, every stretch of my limbs was a silent promise, the promise that soon, very soon, this restrained tension would break free and wash over us like the waves lapping at the shore. A few days had passed since our arrival at Sunfire Cove, and the rhythm of the resort had settled into a sultry, slow dance under the Caribbean sun. By this point, Cal and I had fully slipped into the island's intoxicating vibe free of cares, drenched in heat, and wrapped in that delicious tension we'd been building from the moment we first arrived. After a leisurely lunch, as the other guests drifted away to their corners of the paradise, I found myself lounging on a padded daybed that was just a little off the beaten path. It wasn't secluded enough to promise complete privacy, but nestled beneath the shade of a swaying palm tree, it held just enough cover to feel thrillingly secret. The combination of the warm sun, the whisper of palms in the breeze, and the glimmer of ocean beyond created a backdrop made for moments like this, moments woven with anticipation and electric desire. I was wearing nothing but my skin, glistening faintly from the mix of sun and lotion, with a wicked little smile playing on my lips. Cal stood over me, drink in hand, eyes locked on the inside of my thighs, warm and tense from the sun's caress. "You know how hard it's been watching you all day?" His voice was low, rough with suppressed need. I met his gaze, spreading my legs just a little wider in invitation, letting him see how much the heat was stirring me. The sun had kissed my skin, turning it a shade darker, but underneath the surface, it was my desire that burned hottest. "Show me how hard," I whispered, voice thick with need. Without hesitation, he knelt between my legs, the tension in his body obvious as he held his drink in one hand. Then, with a devilish grin, Cal tipped a splash of the cold, citrusy margarita directly onto my most sensitive place. The cold liquid trickled down, a sharp contrast to the heat pooling inside me, and I gasped at the sting of citrus pooling against my skin, my fingers clutching the daybed cushions. The mingling of cold and heat made my senses reel. Without breaking eye contact, Cal's tongue flicked out to taste the cooling liquid, slow and methodical, like a cat savoring an expensive treat. His flat tongue traced delicate circles, lapping me up as if I were his personal cocktail glass. He groaned softly, voice thick with pleasure. "You taste like tequila and fun." I arched my back instinctively, the sensation of his tongue circling my most intimate spot causing a riot of feeling. The cold margarita mixed with the slick wetness of his spit, making everything feel impossibly slippery and alive beneath him. My moans grew louder as I ground myself against his face, biting my lip fiercely to hold down the primal sounds threatening to burst free. Then, with a swift movement, Cal rose and slipped his swim shorts down, revealing his thick, eager length. "I want to make love to you, dirty," he growled, voice husky with want. "Sticky, messy. I want you dripping. I smiled, the thrill of being both exhibition and conquest mingling as I whispered back, "Then don't hold back." Acting on impulse, he grabbed the margarita glass from beside the bed and poured the rest over my sun-warmed chest. The cold liquid splashed over my skin, sending shivers as it trickled down, mixing with sweat and salt. Without missing a beat, he positioned himself above me and slid inside in one fluid motion. The sharp sting of cold margarita contrasted wildly with the heat spreading between us, and I screamed, the mixture of sensation overwhelming. Our chosen daybed wasn't hidden away, just tucked slightly off the main path beneath a swaying palm. It allowed just enough cover to feel secretly daring, but anyone passing by could catch glimpses, moans escaping, an arching back, the tantalizing bounce of a body in motion. It was an adult's only resort after all. Such moments were expected, even welcomed. Cal's thick, perfect length moved inside meslo and punishing, stretching me just right as my slender back pressed sticky against the cushions. Every thrust was a thunderous drumbeat in the symphony of sensation playing out beneath the sun. His grip on my hips tightened, fingers digging into flesh to hold me steady, while each thrust squeezed a new cry from my throat. I didn't care about who might be watching. My entire world had contracted to the heat between us and the shared breathlessness of our union. "God, I'm going to—" My voice broke, helpless and raw. His growl overshadowed mine. "Do it." And I did. Legs trembling, toes curling, every fiber of my being clutching him as I let go with a scream of his name. My release was slick and hot, pooling between us as he continued, riding through it with a primal determination. His chest pressed roughly against mine, panting as the last of the ecstasy lingered in the air. Then, with a wicked glint, he grabbed what remained of the margarita, tilting the glass to pour the cold, sticky liquid over my chest again. The sudden chill made me gasp, the sticky margarita mingling with the sweat and remnants of our pleasure. Drops rolled down my breasts, icy on my skin, nipples hard as ice from the contrast. Even as I trembled from the aftershocks, Cal pulled out, his length shining and still alive with want. He stroked once, twice, eyes dark and commanding. "Take it, Cindy." I obeyed without hesitation, sticking out my tongue just as the first thick rope of warmth splattered across my sun-kissed chest. Another splash landed on my collarbone, then my face tracing a line just beneath my eye and across my lips. My mouth parted, tasting the mingled heat of him and tequila intoxicating and raw. "God, look at you," he groaned, pride and lust mixing in his voice. "A fucking mess." I smiled, brushing the warmth over my chest, tracing the lines with my fingers as if sealing this moment into my skin. Sticky with drink and sweat, I licked my lips and locked eyes with him, knowing this was only the beginning. He stood above me, the heat between us almost unbearable as the salty breeze rustled the palm leaves overhead. His eyes were dark and stormy, heavy with an urgency that made my pulse quicken. Without hesitation, he dropped his swim shorts, freeing himself completely, thick and ready, nothing held back. The rough thud of his length against my sun-warmed skin sent another wave of heat flooding through me, anticipation coiling tighter with each passing second. "I want to make love to you dirty," he growled low, his voice thick with want and hungry promise. "Sticky, messy, I want you dripping." His words were not a question, but a declaration of intent, a challenge and a temptation wrapped in one. I smiled wickedly, my body aching for him, aching to feel everything, the heat, the wetness, the rawness without restraint. "Then don't hold back," I whispered, breath hitching with desire. Without a word, he reached for the nearly empty margarita glass by the daybed's side. The cool liquid shimmered in the sunlight as he lifted it, tipping the rest of its contents over my bare chest. The cold splash broke against my skin, stark and electric, dripping down my curves, mingling with sweat and salt and the remnants of the Caribbean sun. My nipples hardened instantly at the cold touch, standing firm in contrast to the heat pooling between my legs. The contrast of sensations had my breath catching, my senses heightened and alive. Moving swiftly and with purpose, Cal positioned himself at my entrance, the thick length pressing firmly, stretching me just so. A cry escaped my lips as the cool liquid against my skin made every nerve more acute, every touch more intense. Then, with a deep groan, he slid inside me in one smooth, powerful motion. The pools of slick margarita spread beneath us, sticky and sweet, the perfect backdrop to the rawness of the moment. The spot we'd chosen wasn't hidden, only slightly set back from the main path, shaded by a tall palm tree that swayed gently in the breeze. The daybed was padded, cushioned just enough to cradle my contorted body, the fabric warm against my back and damp with salt and sweat. I knew anyone walking by might catch glimpses, moans escaping softly, a bouncing curve here, the arch of my spine there. We were exposed, revealed to the heat and eyes of the resort, and it just added to the thrill. Cal's hips moved with ferocity, each powerful thrust punctuated by the wet slap of skin against skin. His hands gripped my hips tightly, fingers digging into my flesh, firm and demanding. Every movement stretched me, filling me, making me ache with the pleasure and the sting of the unexpected coolness still lingering from the margarita. I arched back, pressing my chest against the cushion beneath me, slick and sticky under the sun's caress. The mix of sweat, salt, and citrus created a sensual tapestry covering us both. God, I couldn't finish the sentence. My voice was broken, breath ragged and short. Cal only growled deep in his throat, the predatory sound sending shivers down my spine. Do it. Now. And I did. My legs trembled, toes curling against the soft padding as my body clenched around him. Waves of release crashing through every fiber. I screamed his name, the sound raw and desperate, echoing softly in the warm air around us. My warmth pooled between us, slick and hot as he continued, thrusting through the fire of my climax. His chest pressed against mine, heavy breaths mingling, his skin slick with sweat, salt, and the remnants of spilled margarita. As the waves of pleasure ebbed, he reached for the remaining margarita glass again. Without hesitation, he tilted it back over my chest, cold liquid splashing and trickling down in sticky rivulets. The sudden chill against my flushed skin pulled sharp gasps from me. Drops rolled down my breasts, icy and wet, coaxing my nipples to stand as ice touched flesh and slid down curving sides. Still trembling from the aftershocks, I looked up at him, breathless and smiling, soaked in the aftermath of our shared storm. He pulled out slowly, his length glistening with slick moisture and the sticky remnants of the drink. The sight was almost too much to bear, throbbing and heavy, a symbol of his intensity and desire. With slow, deliberate strokes, he began to pleasure himself, his eyes locked on mine, dark and commanding. "Take it, Cindy," he breathed, voice rough with need. I obeyed immediately, leaning forward and parting my lips, extending my tongue just as the first thick rope of warmth shot across my chest. It landed hot and heavy against the cool, sticky skin, an electric contrast that made my whole body shudder. Another splash caught my collarbone, the next trailing down my face, dripping just under my eye, then sliding across my lips. I parted my mouth, tasting the mingled salt and heat, the essence of Cal and the tang of tequila weaving together into something intoxicating and raw. "God, look at you," he groaned, his gaze darkening with a mix of pride and lust. "A complete mess." I smiled, using my fingers to smear the warmth into my sun-warmed skin, blending it with the margarita's stickiness and my own slick sweat. Licking my lips, I met his eyes and thought how perfect this moment was, wild, unchecked, and utterly ours. The aftermath of our shared intensity lingered in the humid air, wrapping around us like a warm, sticky blanket. My skin shimmered under the forgiving Caribbean sun, slick with a mixture of sweat, margarita, and desire. The cold drink sliding down my body contrasted sharply with the heat still pulsing between us, creating a delicious tangle of sensations that kept me trembling. Cal stood close, breathing heavily, the low rumble of his voice punctuating the quiet around us. He was still flushed, his chest rising and falling in a rhythm that matched the rapid beat of my heart. Every inch of him gleamed with the remnants of our fiery encounter, a testament to the passion that had consumed us moments before. Watching him hold himself there, so raw and exposed, made my pulse race anew. He stroked himself slowly, deliberately, eyes locked with mine, dark and filled with an almost predatory hunger. "Take it all, Cindy," he groaned, his voice thick with need and promise. Without hesitation, I leaned forward, the warmth of my breath mingling with the salty tang of sweat and citrus on his skin. My tongue slipped out, tasting the mixture still lingering on his length, sweet, earthy, intoxicating. As his release spilled over my chest, hot and heavy against the lingering chill of the margarita, I savored the contrast. Each thick rope landed across my sun-warmed skin, glistening and warm, a tactile and visual mark of our connection. A few stray droplets hit my collarbone, then traveled delicately across my face, tracing a line right beneath my eye before crossing over my parted lips. I moaned softly, tasting the mingled flavors of him and the island's spirited drink, the mixture both foreign and thrilling on my tongue. The sensation sent a shiver straight down my spine, making my body pulse anew in response. He watched me intently, the pride and lust flickering in his eyes, making my core ache with desire once again. "God, look at you," Cal breathed, voice thick with admiration. "A complete mess." I smiled wickedly, knowing the truth and loving every moment of it. My fingers reached up instinctively, rubbing the warm slick of him into the tender skin of my chest, mixing the sticky margarita and sweat with his release. Each stroke was slow and deliberate, a sensual celebration of the night's wild abandon. The taste lingered on my lips, and I couldn't help but lick them, savoring the salty sweetness left behind. For a long moment, we simply looked at each other, the silence filled with everything that needed no words, intimacy, trust, and a shared hunger that had only deepened during our time at this sun-drenched paradise. The soft swaying of the palm leaves above provided a soothing soundtrack to our quiet aftermath, the only movement the gentle rise and fall of our chests, and the occasional sway of my fingers across my skin. The mingling scents of salt, sweat, and tequila hung heavy in the air, a fragrant reminder of the day's heat and passion. Despite the lingering messiness, or perhaps because of it, I felt more connected to Cal than ever before raw, unfiltered and completely exposed in every sense. This wasn't just about physical indulgence. It was about the freedom to be ourselves without reservation, the thrill of mutual surrender. Slowly, we settled into one another, the sticky heat giving way to the comforting warmth of closeness. My fingers traced lazy patterns along his back as he rested his forehead against mine, breaths mingling in the humid air. Together, we laughed softly at the massive mess we'd made, knowing that cleaning up was just a minor task compared to the memories we'd created. The edges of the day softened, and with it came the realization that moments like these, messy, wild, unrestrained, were the threads weaving the fabric of our marriage. We were not perfect, but perfectly matched in our imperfect passion. As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long amber shadows across the sand, I held Cal tighter, savoring the salty warmth still radiating from his skin and from deep within my core. The sticky residue on us both was more than just a physical reminder. It was a symbol of surrender, trust, and the rush of living fully in the moment. In that golden light, with the taste of tequila still lingering and the warm weight of him pressed close, I knew that some memories burned brighter and messier than any others ever could.